Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon, and I want to say thank you to Lori, not just for the kind words. Most importantly, I want to thank you for your strong and steady leadership. I think you and I have known each other about 2 decades, and whether in government or working outside and alongside your partners in government, you always make a difference, and I'm grateful to you. And I'm especially grateful to your board that you recognize, but all those amazing workers and volunteers from Philabundance. Thank you, guys. I know how hard you work, and we're really grateful to you. You know, for over 40 years, Philabundance has worked to feed families in need, distributing more than 39 million meals every single year. I think that is critical work. I think that is beautiful work, and that work is happening, sadly, at a time where hunger and food insecurity is on the rise. I know that many people served by Philabundance also rely on food assistance support from SNAP, from the federal government. Here in Pennsylvania, I want you to understand this, 2 million of our fellow Pennsylvanians receive SNAP benefits. Let me put that in some perspective for you. I see you shaking your head back and forth like that. 2 million people receive SNAP benefits here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Our entire population in Pennsylvania is 13 million people. Roughly 1 in 8 of our neighbors here in our Commonwealth rely on SNAP. And since SNAP was created back in 1964, it has always been funded 100% by the federal government. But right now, because of the federal shutdown, 2 million of our neighbors here in Pennsylvania are about to lose their food assistance for the first time in the history of our nation. They have never had their benefits paused before until right now. This is all because the Trump administration has decided that it will not be issuing SNAP benefits for the month of November, which of course begins tomorrow. They made this determination even though they are sitting on billions of dollars of congressionally appropriated contingency funds. I want you to know that earlier this week, I sued the Trump administration, demanding that they release that contingency funding to keep our SNAP benefits flowing in the Commonwealth. I want to take a moment and thank Mike Fisher and Jacob Boyer from my team who joined me here, the lead lawyers in this case. And I want to provide you with an update that just occurred a few moments ago. The judge in our case ruled that the Trump administration must turn the spigot on and must release these SNAP dollars. That's an important win. An important win. And that is why we stood up and took on this fight and filed that suit. Now, there's 2 problems that we are concerned about. Number 1, it's going to take about 10 days for them to be able to get those dollars flowing to SNAP recipients again. And number 2, given this administration and its propensity to ignore the rule of law, I don't trust that they're going to follow this judge's ruling. I sure hope the Trump administration does not appeal and instead adheres to the rule of law and follows this judge's ruling. It is really important that we get these dollars flowing again. The sources of funds that have been held up to Pennsylvanians are, number 1, these SNAP benefits, and number 2, LFPA funds that go to fulfill a righteous cycle here in this Commonwealth. A $13 million earmark from the federal government that goes to Pennsylvania farmers who produce foods that end up in places like Philabundance. The Trump administration has stopped both of those funds, and I've sued over both to get it flowing again. I know we are here to talk about the 2 million Pennsylvanians who rely on SNAP, our neighbors who are going to go hungry because the federal government isn't fulfilling its obligation to its citizens. But let's not ignore the fact that there are numerous Pennsylvania farmers who are going to be hurt by the decision to not have SNAP funding go forward. Remember, these are farmers who rely on the market share of funding a place like Philabundance or Share or many of the others who do this righteous work. So not only is President Trump harming people who are hungry, he is harming Pennsylvania farmers. and that's on top of what he's already done to them with his ill-advised tariffs. I think right now we should be doing everything we can to feed Pennsylvanians and not making excuses as to why it can't happen. Unfortunately, the Trump administration has told all states in writing that should we choose to use state dollars to put money on people's SNAP cards, that we would not be reimbursed for that funding. I'm really honored to be joined by so many wonderful lawmakers who are here today, who have been sounding the alarm with their concerns about SNAP, who have reached out to me and said, Gov, we got to do something about this. These are wonderful people representing your communities. We can't ask them to go and try and appropriate funds that we won't get reimbursed for when this is a 100% federally funded initiative. I'm so grateful to all of you for your passion and concern, but let's be real, the Trump administration is putting us in a very, very dangerous place. They're both withholding the funds and telling us, don't go spending money on people who are hungry. Don't go investing in our farmers because we're not going to reimburse you. I think that is wrong. I think that is cold-hearted. And listen, here in Pennsylvania, though, I think we need to lead by example. And the example we set is to love thy neighbor. The example we set is from a famous Pennsylvanian, albeit on the other side of the state, that when there's a challenge, Mr. Rogers told us to look for the helpers. Phil Abundance, you guys are the helpers. These lawmakers are helpers. Everyone here who cares deeply about their neighbors and helping them get the food that they need, you are the helpers. That is why I'm joining with those helpers. And just a few hours ago, in my office in Harrisburg, I signed a disaster declaration, which will allow us to meet the needs of hungry Pennsylvanians who are facing a food crisis brought about by the federal government's unwillingness to feed people. As a result of my disaster declaration that I signed, our administration will now immediately drive out $5 million in state funding to food banks like Phil Abundance that will allow them to purchase more healthy food from local sources, including Pennsylvania farmers, to provide food assistance to the millions of Pennsylvanians who are in need. This funding is going to be distributed similar to how funding goes out through the Pennsylvania Agriculture Surplus System, known as PASS. That's an existing initiative under the Department of Agriculture led by Secretary Russell Redding that has already driven out $35.5 million of state funds through the programs to 13 food banks across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that serve each of our 67 counties. And I again need to thank these state lawmakers who are here, who've consistently voted in favor of my budgets that include this funding. And in the budget that we are getting done now, it's going to include additional funding for this initiative, and I want to thank them for their work. Through this initiative, the Commonwealth will be able to drive out funding to Feeding Pennsylvania, which then distributes the money to our food banks, including Phil Abundance, who can then use those dollars to purchase fresh food from farmers and food vendors. When I signed this declaration earlier, that also allows us to cut through the red tape and get funds to food banks as quickly as possible. The dollars that I've released today will be in our food banks, allowing them to purchase more food for this coming week. There is no delay. We are getting stuff done here in Pennsylvania. The declaration I signed also provides me as governor with more authority and more tools to address this crisis. But let me be clear, Pennsylvania cannot possibly fill the gap left by losing $366 million a month, which is the amount of money that goes on individual SNAP cards each month here in Pennsylvania. And remember, the feds will not reimburse us if we seek to put dollars on that card. So we are instead relying on our food banks, turning to them to make sure that those who are hungry, those who are in need, get the help that they need. In addition to the work we're doing at the state level, over the last 24 hours, I have worked closely with the private sector and asked Pennsylvanians who are fortunate, asked Pennsylvanians who have done well to step up and help their neighbors in this time of need. And I wanted to announce today that as a result of my calls to those leaders in the private sector, we have raised an initial $1 million that will go on top of the state funds that we are releasing. Those individuals have donated to our SNAP Emergency Release Fund. Some of them wanted to be identified, or were willing to be identified, and some wanted to do it anonymously. I wanted to take a moment to thank Thomas Tull. I want to take a moment to thank Connie Williams. I want to take a moment to thank Mark Cuban. I want to take a moment to thank David Edelman. Each of these individuals have stepped up in the initial hours of our campaign to help feed Pennsylvanians on top of the private or public dollars that we are releasing. Every single dollar that is raised into the SNAP Emergency Relief Fund will go directly to feeding Pennsylvania and their network of food banks. Those dollars will not flow through the state. They'll go directly into feeding Pennsylvania. I want to just say to those Pennsylvanians again how grateful I am that they are stepping up, and I want to invite others who are fortunate in this time of need to step up and help as well. Pennsylvania is a wonderful place where people look out for one another. They lift one another up. And in moments of darkness, this Commonwealth can always find some light. And so I want to thank those who have already agreed to step up and urge others to do the same. Look, I think making sure our neighbors have enough to eat, it's one of the most basic foundational things that we can do. Our food banks do an amazing job of that with an assist from our wonderful farmers to help people who are in need, people who are hungry. It really is a righteous cycle. And I want to invite anyone who is fortunate enough in their lives to contribute to the SNAP Emergency Relief Fund. And if you can't contribute to the SNAP Emergency Relief Fund, come do a shift here at Philabundance. Go over to Cher, go to Jerry, go wherever you can to make a difference. Volunteer your time and help your neighbors who are in need. That's something my family and I have done for many years. And I must tell you, it's a beautiful thing to not only pack those boxes, but then take those boxes to the people who need it most and see the smile on their face, the relief on their face, knowing that their neighbors were there to help them. In the midst of all of this, I want our fellow Pennsylvanians to just remember who we're talking about here. 1 out of every 8 people who walk down the streets in our Commonwealth rely on SNAP. We're talking about that single mom who's working long hours, who's doing all the right things, but struggling to pay the bills and just needs a little bit of extra help. That grandmom here in South Philly who can't work, who's got a disability, but needs to needs a little bit more help to be able to cover the groceries for her or maybe for one of her grandchildren. These are real people, and we can't lose sight of that. With all the bickering and the fighting and chaos in D.C., we have to remember these are real people who need help, and that's why Pennsylvania is standing up to do this now. I know folks are worried, and I know that what we're doing here is important, but it can't possibly meet the full gap that exists. We're going to keep doing everything we can to pump more money into these food banks and help people in their time of need. And I just want to invite all of our fellow Pennsylvanians to do the same to help us here. And if you are someone who is in need, if you're wondering where you turn tomorrow when you don't get your SNAP help, I want you to dial 211, or I want you to go to pa211.org, and you can find a food bank in your area that's going to be receiving this extra help, and they'll have what you need to help you stay on your feet. Most importantly, to my fellow Pennsylvanians, I want you to know I got your back, and we're here for you. Thank you. With that, it really is my pleasure now to bring up Robin Perkins. She is not only a SNAP recipient, but a participant in Philabundance's Community Kitchen program, a wonderful person who just has like a warmth to her that I picked up on immediately when we got the chance to meet a few moments ago. I want you to hear from Robin. I want you to understand the impact these SNAP cuts are having. Ladies and gentlemen, please meet Robin Perkins.